August 9th, 1945, Nagasaki, Japan. The sun rose behind a veil of gray clouds as the city stirred awake. Fishermen prepared their nets, children hurried to school, and factory workers filed toward Mitsubishi's shipyard. Among them was Shigeru Tanaka, a 26-year-old draftsman who carried his lunch in a small tin box, unaware his city was moments away from vanishing. At 11:02 a.m., the drone of engines echoed above the hills. Shigeru looked up. 3 B-29 bombers glinted in the distance. He thought they were on reconnaissance. Then, a blinding white flash consumed everything. For a single instant, Nagasaki turned to daylight brighter than the sun itself. The blast wave struck glass, debris, and heat merged into a wall of destruction that swallowed streets whole. Shigeru was hurled to the ground, his body seared by the firestorm. Around him, buildings dissolved into dust, and screams filled the air as the city began to burn. When Shigeru awoke, the world was silent. Unnaturally so. His ears rang, and the air carried a thick metallic taste. The factory where he'd worked stood no more, only a skeletal frame twisted in heat. Bodies lay motionless, shadows burned into walls where people once stood. He staggered to his feet, his clothes tattered and skin blistered. Everywhere, the same horrifying scene. Mothers calling for their children, soldiers digging through rubble with bare hands, and a river clogged with the dying. The once bustling Urakami Valley was now a charred wasteland. Shigeru tried to move toward his home near the riverbank. The streets were gone. Fires raged on both sides, and the sky, once blue, turned an eerie crimson. Ash fell like snow. He found a young girl crying beside her mother's lifeless body. Without a word, he lifted her and walked on, each step sinking into the dust of his own city. As the flames dimmed into smoke, Shigeru wandered through what had once been Nagasaki's heart. The river ran black, its surface bubbling from the heat. He called out for his parents, his brother, but no voices answered, only the distant crackle of fire and the moans of the dying. He reached where his house had stood. Nothing remained but the charred iron frame of a sewing machine. Beneath it, he found his mother's hairpin, still warm to the touch. He sank to his knees. The air smelled of iron and burnt flesh. As night fell, the survivors gathered in the hills, their bodies covered in burns and open wounds. Some cried. Others sat in silence, staring into nothingness. A man muttered prayers, clutching a melted rosary. Above them, an orange glow lingered over the city, a ghostly reminder of what had been. Shigeru lay awake, feeling the heat radiate from the ground, wondering if anyone outside these hills even knew they were still alive. Dawn arrived, but the sun was hidden behind a gray, radioactive haze. Shigeru and the others stumbled down the slopes in search of water and medicine. Wells were poisoned, rivers filled with ash. The few doctors who survived worked with torn cloth and boiled rainwater, trying to save those whose skin peeled away at a touch. A woman beside Shigeru whispered that the Americans had dropped a new kind of bomb, one that burned through flesh but left shadows behind. The survivors called it Picadon, flash boom. No one understood the invisible sickness that followed. People who had seemed unharmed began to collapse, vomiting, bleeding from their gums and eyes. Shigeru helped carry bodies to a temple courtyard where hundreds were laid to rest. He saw the little girl he had saved. Her burns had deepened overnight, her breath slowing. She died before noon, her hand still clutching his sleeve. Shigeru did not cry. He simply stared at the sky, where the bomb had fallen, and wondered what kind of world could create such a weapon. Weeks passed, and Nagasaki became a city of ghosts. Black rain fell for days, soaking the ruins and spreading sickness. Shigeru, weakened by radiation, joined a volunteer group burying the dead along the riverbanks. They used scraps of wood as markers, names written in charcoal, fading with each rainfall. By late August, news spread Japan had surrendered. The war was over. Yet for Shigeru, victory meant little. The sound of planes still made him flinch. At night, he dreamed of the flash, the light that erased a city in seconds. His skin healed, but the scars never faded. Years later, he would tell his story to students, his voice trembling as he described that morning. "I saw Nagasaki turn to ash," he'd say, "and I lived, so I could remember for those who didn't." The classroom would fall silent, the weight of his words heavier than the history books before them. The bomb ended a war, but it also began a lifetime of remembering.